It's time for NEC Women's Basketball on the Run. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ralph Ventre. I'm ready to talk some NEC women's hoops. We are 1/3 of the way through the conference schedule, so let's tip off the show by taking a look at where they stand. Well, they entered last week unbeaten, and that remains the same for Robert Morris. The defending NEC champions won back-to-back contests. They're now 6-0 in the Northeast Conference, the lone remaining unbeaten. The Colonials have now taken 5 of their last 6 against the Pioneers. Led by its trademark defense, Charlie Buscalia's teams have had a habit of quick starts in conference play. Last year, they won their first 11 on the league schedule before Mount St. Mary's finally knocked them off. Speaking of Mount St. Mary's, well, how about those Mountaineers? 5-1 in NEC play for the first time since the 99-2000 season. Coach Marquezano's crew is playing extremely well right now, and we'll have plenty more about them later on in the show. Then, of course, you see the logjam there in the middle. St. Francis U, 5-2. Fairleigh Dickinson with a winning record under first-year head coach Ange Zamilo. We'll have more on the Knights later on in the program as well. Central Connecticut still looking to break into the win column, but they've been close on a couple of recent occasions. We'll keep an eye on that as well. Remember that in the Northeast Conference, positioning in the standings is important. The top 4 teams, after the regular season concludes, they will host NEC tournament games. Of course, the number 1 seed earns home court throughout. And then, of course, there's the race to number 8 for the conference's final postseason berth. Still plenty of more opportunities lie ahead. Still a lot to be decided. But as of now, it's Robert Morris leading the way. That's where they stand. She gets buckets. And she is Sacred Heart guard Adrienne Heygood. Now, Heygood entered the season as Sacred Heart's top returning scorer, and she has kicked it up to the next level. Heygood averaging 16.4 points per game on the season. That's 3rd overall in the Northeast Conference. The Sacred Heart guard has scored at least 14 points in all 6 NEC contests this month. She's coming off back-to-back 20-point performances during the Pioneers' swing through the Keystone State. In a 7-game stretch dating back to a 22-point effort at Penn State, Heygood averaging 17.9 points per game over that span. She's been balling out in NEC play, averaging nearly 2.5 3-pointers per outing, over 16 points per game. She's Adrienne Heygood, and she gets buckets. Calling the Twitter timeout, looking at the tweet sheet, this one from the women's hoops guru, Mel Greenberg, former writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer. He's been around the women's game for decades, still follows it closely, covers it nicely on his blog, and he took to Twitter to shed some light on FDU's first-year head coach, Angelica Steck-Zamilo. The former NEC champion as a student athlete with LIU is in her first head coaching gig up in Hackensack, and so far, so good. Following an 0-7 start, as Mel points out, the Knights have won 7 of 10 games. They are 4-2 in the Northeast Conference, 7 overall victories. That's one win away from matching last year's season total. Under their defensive-minded first-year head coach, the Knights have the number 2 scoring D during conference play, and they are committing the fewest turnovers on the circuit. Mel Greenberg knows it. Now you know it. Fairleigh Dickinson is on the rise. Stats amazing. Yeah, I'd say so. Maria Marquezano's Mountaineers have been amazing this season, especially when playing within the friendly confines of Knott Arena. The Mount is undefeated at home in conference play. Only one loss in Knott Arena this entire season. You have to go back to November, a 1-point last-second loss to Patriot League member Lehigh. The Mount led by 2 in that one, but gave up a 3 at the buzzer. But since then, they've been unbeatable in Emmitsburg. They've scored at least 69 points in all 7 of their home victories. They've made no fewer than 7 3-pointers in any of their 8 home games this year. I should also mention that their receiving contributions throughout the entire lineup, a balanced Mount St. Mary's attack featuring 6 players averaging at least 7.5 points per outing. Mount St. Mary's off to their best NEC scoring and winning in Knott Arena, and stats amazing. And we'll have more on Mount St. Mary's in just a few moments when we kick it outside to NEC play-by-play announcer Craig DAmico. As he does every week, he'll share some hot takes on NEC WBB.
Thanks, Ralph. Welcome back to Craig's Corner. Glad to be back for another week on the NEC Women's Basketball on the Run podcast. It was an exciting week of NEC Women's Basketball action as we celebrated unity on MLK Day weekend. And right now, let's take a look at the most impressive thing that I saw. We take you back to Saturday. Sacred Heart St. Francis, 24 seconds left. Sacred Heart up 1. And Red Flash sophomore Fee Allen drained the game-winning 3 from the corner to put the Flash on top for good. But let's break down this play even further because there's lots of impressive stuff going on here. First was the inbounds pass from Allen from a near impossible angle in the corner. The only place that they see more impossible angles than this is in an AP geometry class. Plus, how about the long reach of Abigail Kangoody in her face? She barely got it inbounds to Swagger, who out-wrestled Jayla Davis for the ball, managing to stay inbounds along the sideline. Then Swagger penetrates, drawing Davis and Kangoody back into the paint, leaving Allen wide open in the left corner to deliver the dramatics. And if that's not enough, how about the impressive hops of Sam Sabino over on the bench? She nearly jumped out of the gym. The Red Flash picked up the win 60-58, a thrilling win that cemented their place top 4 in the NEC standings. And for Sacred Heart, a loss as heartbreaking as Mr. Peanut's unfortunate and untimely passing. My game of the week this week is going to be to selfishly promote the game that I am going to be at on Saturday in Emmitsburg, Maryland on ESPN3 as the Bryant Bulldogs take on the Mount St. Mary's Mountaineers. These two teams met on January the 11th in Rhode Island, a day that Mount shot the ball extremely well. They led by as many as 18 points early on in the third quarter when Bryant went on a 22-9 run, eventually getting to within a single possession in the final minutes. But Mount made their free throws late to clinch the win. Mount St. Mary's this year is at 5-1 in conference play, off to their best start in 20 years since a 7-0 start back in 1999-2000. Meanwhile, the Bryant Bulldogs are coming in with a full week's rest. They had an off day on Monday. They're trying to get back to 500 in conference play this season. The matchup to watch in this one will be Mount St. Mary's high-scoring, balanced offensive attack going up against that tough, physical Bryant defense from head coach Mary Burke. Well, Ralph, my bags are all packed. I'm heading down to Emmitsburg, Maryland. Looking forward to seeing everybody Saturday on ESPN3. But for right now, let's send it back to the NEC Front Row Studios. We'll see you back here next week in Craig's Corner on the NEC Women's Basketball on the Run podcast.
Thanks, Craig. I'm really looking forward to that matchup in Emmitsburg tomorrow. Don't forget, fans, you can watch that one live. Craig will be on the call in Knott Arena. Mount will play on ESPN3 and MASN, tip time 2 p.m. Eastern. So check that out and then enjoy the rest of the NEC slate at necfrontrow.com or fire up the NEC On the Run app. That'll do it for this week's show. Thanks for joining me for another edition of NEC WBB On the Run. For NEC Front Row, I'm Ralph Ventre. We'll see you again next week.